Apologize for the delay in starting. We closed session went a little bit longer. Thank you all for coming out to join our regular business meeting. We will come out of a closed session now.
Yes, sir. I move that this council certify by a recorded vote that to the best of each council member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session.
Second.
Second, can we vote, please? Okay, thank you. We're now going to observe a moment of silence. A lot has happened over the last week in our community and the world. So. Thank you. Are there any announcements?
I just wanted to very briefly acknowledge Jim Shea and B. Lambert. I know a lot of people in the community knew them as activists, not people who worked on the inside, but they'd been involved for decades, anti-Vietnam War movement, gay rights movement. The very first meeting in Charlottesville politics I ever went to, there were 4 people. They were 2 of them, and they continued to be involved with Police Civilian Oversight Board, Human Rights Commission. Just want to acknowledge, their lives, and they were beautiful people.
Thank you. Great.
We also have an announcement from Alex Zan highlighting the 16th annual Summer Think Shop. This year's theme is Yes, You Matter. The purpose of this event is to provide a fun, educational, and positive experience for area children, campers ages 6 to 12. It will take place at Burnley Moran Elementary School on Thursday, July 18th from 10:30 to noon. The main highlights are Mila Marrero, a 12-year-old creator of mental health boxes, a drum call, a dance troupe, saxophones, and various other groups. Then the In Touch segment will be at the Jefferson Madison Regional Library and will be presented by the library and the Blue Ridge Health District with thank you to some local sponsors. So July 18th at Burnley Moran from 10:30 to noon.
Yeah. Alexander always has some really good things going on supporting
cool
the
stuff
community.
going on.
So thank you. Other announcements? Okay. I don't think we had any recognition, so we'll go right into community matters. We have 8 persons that are pre-registered to speak, leaving 8 slots open. And once we get through the first 8, I'll just identify individuals in the audience if you'd like to speak. So we'll start with our first speaker. You have 3 minutes, and it's Elizabeth McKinney.
Hi, good evening. I'm here tonight to talk about the impending sale of the Carlton Mobile Home, or the Carlton Mobile Home Park. I'm concerned, as are quite a few people, that this sale could potentially result in the displacement of our neighbors who currently reside in this park. The funds that the people who live there would receive if they were forced to leave would not be adequate to cover the cost of leaving, and moreover, there just aren't enough spots for mobile homes if they survive the process of being moved to be moved into. Which leaves the people who live there in quite a predicament, as it's very unclear where they might be able to go, and unlikely that they might be able to continue living in our city. Along with a group of other people, I have canvassed in this neighborhood, and I've spoken to several people. One woman asked us to relay that she has lived in this park for 44 years. It's her home. She has nowhere else to go. Another person told us that the trailer is the only thing she really owns, that she inherited the money with which that she bought it with, and losing the trailer would essentially mean losing everything, losing all of her wealth. And a lot of people in this neighborhood have families that would be displaced, a lot of small children. And furthermore, people who live in this neighborhood are people who work doing essential jobs. They're a vital part of our community. And I, for one, don't want to see them displaced and not able to live in the city that they live in, work in, and help to run. So I am asking that this council would collaborate with Habitat for Humanity to put in a counteroffer before the August 6th deadline. Thank you.
Thank you. The, Martha, we have your, presentation in front of us.
Good evening. Thank you for the chance to speak to all of you tonight. As you mentioned, Mayor, I have a set of stories for you to read at your leisure. I just wanted to take this time to thank you for your support during the budget process and generally for collaborating with JABA. We go from talking about numbers at the budget time to wanting to share with you some stories that help you actually feel the difference that we make. It's a lot more fun and more rewarding. I would just point out that pages 2 and 3 talk about our JREC, our Respite and Enrichment Center, and I think what those two stories show is just how simple something like a manicure or a shave, what a difference that makes to people with dementia feeling like they have dignity. And I think we forget that sometimes. And then I would just point to page 7, which is a much longer article, but basically it talks about how our health educators been able to help a person from Charlottesville better understand how she could eat healthy and meet some of her needs for her disabilities and chronic diseases, but also feel good about what she's eating, and then gave her some ideas to even do some things with her daughter to make it an activity. And that she just felt like that health educator heard her and then gave her some good ideas. And I think that's what so much of what we do is about, is stories after that are our aging service coordinators. And although the example is from one in a different county, they're very similar to what we do everywhere. And it's just important that seniors and caregivers feel like they have a place to go, to get heard, to get solutions, to get help. So our help comes in so many ways, both practical things that you can hold in your hand, like a meal, and then the advice that can help you carry yourself through the day. So I always like being able to share some of our heartwarming stories with you, and I don't want to take up a lot of your time reading them to you, but you can enjoy them when you have a minute. So thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, Marta, I want to thank you for your service. I know it's been recently announced that you will be retiring, and I serve as a city rep on the board, and we hear these powerful, impactful stories at our monthly meeting, and I think that I know this community will look and feel a lot different without JABA there to keep an eye and be an advocate for our aging. So thank you so much for your work, and we'll be sure to read this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marta.
Just take me a second
Joan?
to turn it around.
I want to share my time with Greer since she didn't get on the list, so we're going to split it between us.
Thank you, Joan. Hi, my name is Greer Achenbach. I am Executive Director of Friends of Charlottesville Downtown. I will be speaking on behalf of the Friends organization, whose mission is to create a better than ever downtown for the entire community. I've had the privilege of working with most of you all over the past 2 years in our efforts to do just that. I submitted a series of written testimonies to you from our business community, our downtown businesses, and I hope that you'll get a chance to hear some of their personal stories tonight. You already know that the mall is struggling. Since 2017, we have gone from 3.5 million visitors annually to 2.5 million visitors annually in 2023. If that trend continues, the mall will not survive. There are some key themes that we saw in the testimonies from our downtown businesses. They're losing customers who don't want to come downtown. Their staff feel unsafe. While their sales are declining, they have increasing costs and responsibilities. They're dealing with biohazard waste and a deteriorating environment, and they don't feel like the police have the authority to help them solve these problems. We at Friends of Charlottesville Downtown are throwing everything we have into supporting the downtown mall. And we are struggling to convince people to spend their time and money on the downtown mall. And despite living in a wealthy community that cares very deeply about Main Street, we are also struggling to encourage philanthropists to support our marketing, safety, and community building programs. If we don't work together to solve these problems, the mall is seen as a lost cause, and our supporters do not want to continue putting money into good money after bad. I want to emphasize that we are not here to complain, and that we want to demonstrate compassion to find better solutions for our entire community. We understand that there's very difficult decisions that need to be made, and hope that you remember that investing in a thriving economy is the only expenditure that will bring additional funding for other priorities that the city has. This is not an either-or conversation. I think Charlottesville is at a unique inflection point where the city council, city management, and the community at large are willing to work together to solve our problems, and I look forward to Friends of Seaville being one of those partners.
In my remaining 25 seconds, I would agree with what she said, and what I would say is I've been on the mall since 97, 98, I don't remember, and I've watched it go up and down and up and down, and we are as bad as we've been in terms of perception of it being unsafe. All of the businesses care about the people that are unhoused in need of services. We all reach out to them, and we want to partner with you to find some immediate solutions so that we're not waiting for housing to come on board in 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker is Elizabeth Stark.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Elizabeth Stark. I'm a resident of the Woolen Mills. I live on Fairway Avenue in the city. I know you've heard from a lot of folks this weekend and late last week about the Carlton Mobile Home Park and what it means to our community and what it means to the residents there. And so I just want to reiterate how important your support for a potential redevelopment project is there. Myself and other members of Charlottesville DSA, along with folks from Legal Aid Justice Center, Sin Barreras, and other local organizations, spent our weekend canvassing the Carlton Mobile Home Park and speaking with residents there. We heard from stories, people like what they have there. They can afford to live there. They can't imagine what will happen if they can't live there. They have invested in this place and this space, and they very much wish. Some residents wanted to stay and have things stay the same. Other residents were incredibly excited about the prospect of redevelopment and some kind of new and safe, affordable, efficient housing. So, I just want to sort of hold up that community and say, we saw so many beautiful neighbors who care about their neighbors, a diverse community that knows each other and is really deeply connected. So I know you have big decisions to make and it's a big funding commitment, but I really hope that the city of Charlottesville will honor that and not let this become a private development and displace this vibrant community. So thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you. Bill?
Good evening, Mayor Wade and councilors. In February 2013, the city developed a water resources protection plan that established a fee payable by landowners for impervious surface. I'd like to urge council to introduce an item in this fall's legislative packet that will nudge developers and landowners towards establishing more canopy cover. Currently, property owners are charged yearly $14 per 500 square feet of impervious surface. Let's request in the legislative packet that mathematician botanists at Virginia Tech calculate the beneficial effects of canopy coverage in reducing the stormwater runoff from impervious surface. Such a calculation, a canopy credit, would provide a positive incentive for people to plant trees. Establishing tree canopy coverage reduces runoff. come up with a science-based formula that rewards landowners for canopy coverage and implement that canopy credit. Keep the initial amount of the Water Resources Protection Plan fees revenue neutral. That is, the same amount of money will be assessed on landowners collectively to support the city's stormwater infrastructure. But with the enabling legislation, landowners who have a high amount of impervious surface without counterbalancing canopy will be responsible for an increased fee. They will pay more than they're currently paying. Landowners who provide canopy coverage will pay less. From an administrative point of view, the canopy coverage impervious surface combo could be calculated every 5 years for each parcel in the city using GIS and aerial photography with the investment of minimal staff hours. There are existing nudges in the zoning ordinance to preserve canopy. I'm thinking about section 491, tree preservation and replacement, which requires a permit prior to the removal of any tree with greater than 8-inch diameter breast height. This nudge is not working. I've seen multiple trees removed without the benefit of a permit since the zoning ordinance was approved. That well-meaning rule is not enforceable without public and arborist awareness and many more zoning compliance employees. Earlier this evening, you heard about Parks and Rec's ambitious forest restoration of 20 acres with 1,280 saplings projected to be planted. Currently, the 6.5-acre trailer park shelters many people while supporting close to 40% tree canopy. With the proposed redevelopment, the canopy coverage on this site is likely to drop to 10%. Charlottesville is unaffordable, and with the loss of canopy, it becomes, with the loss of canopy and the housing, it becomes less livable.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bill. So we'll note that. The next speaker is Ada Majesty. Did I pronounce that correctly? Okay, I'm sorry. Didn't.
Honorable Council members, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Aida Mengiste, and I stand before you not only as a concerned community member, but also as a housing intern at the Legal Age Justice Center. I have spent hours door knocking at the Carlton Mobile Home Park, engaging with residents and hearing their concerns about the potential sale of their homes to a private developer. Families shared their fears and frustrations, recounting how this news has shaken their sense of security and stability. Almost everyone I spoke with was eager to sign petitions to voice their opposition to the sale, highlighting the deep-rooted attachments they have to their homes. This sentiment is clear. Carlton Mobile Home Park is not just a collection of residences. It is a community. It is where children have grown up, where neighbors have become family, and where countless memories have been made. As a housing intern, I have witnessed the profound emotional and practical implications that the displacement of these families would have. It is critical that you act to protect and preserve the fabric of our communities. We cannot ignore the voices of those who would be directly impacted by this sale. These families are not just statistics. They are our neighbors, our friends, and integral parts of our city's social and economic tapestry. I urge you to consider the broader implications of this decision. We have an opportunity to explore alternatives that prioritize the well-being of our residents, such as collaborating with Habitat for Humanity to purchase the park on behalf of residents. In closing, let us reaffirm our commitment to being a city that values its residents over profits. Let us stand with the families of Carlton Mobile Home Park in their fight to preserve their homes and their community. Together, we can make a decision that reflects our shared values and ensures that every resident of our city has a place they can call home. Thank you for your attention to this critical matter.
Thank you. Heidi Berthoud.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Divya-Bertu, and I live in the Locust Grove neighborhood. I'm a member of the Court Square Enslavement Memorial Advocacy Group. Out of respect for enslaved ancestors, we are the group that have placed flowers weekly for 4 years now at the corner of 0 Park Street and East Jefferson. Last week, our group delivered to the City Council our concept plan for a proposed Lorraine and Eugene Williams Honorary Park adjoining the slave block site at this same corner. In June, we presented this idea to the Historic Resources Council. The HRC encouraged us to move the concept inside the Court Square rectangle itself. In this way, the new memorial park will replace the former Stonewall Jackson statue. Our group agrees, and we are designing a new concept sketch for this 5,000 square foot memorial park. We propose the following approximate wording to appear at the 2 entrances. Lorraine and Eugene Williams Memorial Park repurposes McKee Row, situated here from the 1890s to 1918, which was an historic Black residential and business location, then at the center of town. It inaugurates a spirit of apology and reconciliation in a place where all communities can unite. The park is a site of justifiable civic pride representing the collaboration of diverse citizens and neighborhoods of our county and city. It revitalizes the Court Square as a place to hold memorial gatherings, to engage in quiet meditation and prayer, and sit on benches with children eating lunch. Honoring Charlottesville civil rights leaders as well as descendants of those enslaved and all Black residents, it represents the truths about the past and embodies promise and hope for the future. So we thank you, Council, for allowing our group to engage further with placing a memorial park at the Court Square. And in the remaining minutes, I would just like to add, to pile on to what other folks have said here tonight. I've spoken to you before about the Mount View planned unit development and how aggrieved I am to see these magnificent ancient trees scheduled to be removed. We know that they are the best decarbonizers. And this land could be used for affordable housing, all of it. You could go back to the original drawing board and keep those trees in there and make it be for affordable housing. So thank you for listening. Is it too late? I hope not.
No, thank you so much. The next and last speaker for those who pre-registered was Defendus Fineout. Is that person here? I will go to the, okay, so we'll open it up. Who would like to speak? We have openings for. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Joan Kovach. I live in Dillwyn, and I'm a co-owner of The Beautiful Idea. Someone from a group text of business owners on the mall requested that anyone who is free tonight should come and speak to the impact on our businesses of unhoused people being on the mall. Last year in our shop, we installed a community free fridge, a place where people can leave food for others in need, and people can come in and take food, no questions asked. Plenty of unhoused folks have made use of this fridge, as well as random customers who were grateful for the chance to grab a meal after a long day without an extra trip to the grocery store. We knew that our regulars would be pleased to see and engage with the free fridge, but what we didn't expect was how many great responses we'd get from people just coming in at random, not knowing our store beforehand. We've had people see the fridge for the first time and be excited to come back with donations. We've had farmers wanting to donate eggs and businesses around town who are glad that their leftover portions at the end of the day could go to a good use. We've even had instances of young people leaving our store after an evening event, coming back to knock on the locked door, asking if they can grab some food to bring to someone who seemed like they needed it. We also allow the general public to use our restroom. And honestly, this has more often been relevant to exasperated tourists just trying to pee, who frequently become customers after the fact. But we have also heard from unhoused folks who are tired of being shouted out of stores for having bodily needs. There have been no negative consequences to our bathroom being available to everyone. That said, I personally would love to see the city provide restrooms and water fountains downtown. I know some folks may be anxious to interact with people they perceive as very different than themselves. I think that's pretty normal, but how we choose to respond to that anxiety says everything about us as people and as a community. Most people who take food from our fridge are excessively careful. They ask if they're allowed, they're amazed, and they're grateful. They talk about coming back when they have extra to return the favor. It hurts my heart to see people be so cautious to accept the simple generosity of some donated food, especially when there's so much joy in the faces of people who donate. There's been a lot of discussion lately around unhoused people, and it's easy to get caught up in theoreticals. I would like to propose that instead of focusing on our fear, as a community, we could be creating more spaces to bridge the perceived gaps between us. Because from where I'm at, all I've seen are people happy to share and be of service to each other, and people grateful to be treated with dignity. And to answer the original question requested in the group text of how this impacts our business is doing great. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Claire?
Hello, Council. Thanks for letting me speak. Blair Williamson. I'm a resident of Albemarle County. I have 2 businesses in the city. I grew up coming to the downtown mall as a kid. We would go to my grandmother's house on Lewis Mountain Road and take the bus downtown because that was safe to do even, as a 10, 12-year-old. We'd go to Army Navy store and Wiley's and Woolworths and Brown's Gifts for really fancy things like wedding gifts. We had lunch at the Timberlakes. We went to the hardware store, I had an crazy ice cream and candy store. It was magical. It was a magical, magical place. Everyone in town came to the downtown mall because it was the center of town. Fast forward 30 to 40 years and the magic is tired. You've heard from Greer in the past year how that there are over 1 million fewer visitors to the downtown mall, a reduction of over 33% in 1 year. Why are people not coming? They don't feel safe day or night. The locals don't need to be approached more than once or twice to make the decision not to come down again. Parking is a bit of a hassle, and they have to pay and walk further than they would if they were in Barrack Schroeder Stonefield. If you were a woman walking alone on the downtown mall, there's a really good chance that you'll be approached by someone wanting money. It's hard to say no because we're all compassionate people and we want to help. We know that simply giving a handout will only bring more panhandlers to the mall. Sometimes we say, I don't have any cash, and other times we simply pay and walk away knowing that neither was the right solution. Ultimately, the downtown retailers and restaurants rely upon tourism to stay alive. We've already scared off the locals from the county. The tourists don't know to be afraid until they get here. The weekend wedding business keeps the hotels busy and hopefully the wineries, but the downtown mall is wasting away with little to no attention being directed to making it a vibrant place to live and work. We have ordinances that don't allow panhandling. City Code Section 2831 says it shall be unlawful for any persons to solicit money or other things of value or to solicit the sale of goods or services. I often hear that we don't have that ordinance. I Googled it today. It took me 30 seconds. I found it. From walking from Magpie Knits, my knitting shop, to here tonight, I was approached 2 times. I didn't feel threatened, but, I'm used to it, unfortunately. Section 7A says, on private property, if the owner, tenant, or lawful occupant has asked the person not to solicit on the property or has posted a sign clearly indicating that solicitations are not welcome on the property, let's post some signs. I'll help you pay for it if that's the problem. Henrico County posts in Short Pump in their shopping areas, and then they give you an alternative location to donate if you feel compassionate and want to help. At present, we're only holding people accountable to the level they can be accountable. It's past time for studies and commissions. It's the time to enforce the laws and ordinances that we have, time to bring them all back to life and hold everybody accountable to the same level. Thank you.
Thank you. I take anyone over here want to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Freeman Allen, and I live next to Dardental Park. Like Heidi Bertu, I'm a member of the Court Square Enslavement Memorial Citizen Activism Group. We wish to collaborate with the descendants of enslaved ancestors of Charlottesville and those of the larger Central Virginia region, as our community places a significant memorial park at Court Square. An important part of our concept sees a fountain at the center of this park. We feel it's important for this fountain to have an inspirational plaque attached and ask that you consider the approximate following statement which we offer. It is long past time that we honored the enslaved people who were sold here. The plaque would read, from 1760 and perhaps earlier through 1865, tens of thousands of men, women, and children were sold or resold at or near this location. The city of Charlottesville acknowledges this with apology and regret, and hereby appreciates the incalculable contributions made to the economic and social well-being of our town and surrounding counties through the generations of unpaid labor and infrastructure creation of these people. Their sale here at Court Square and their immense contributions have been too long ignored. This central cleansing fountain transforms a space of painful memory into one of civic repair. With the fountain's purifying flow, the city of Charlottesville pledges to create justice that runs down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I particularly want to call out to you that we are recommending that this park be named Lorraine and Eugene Williams Memorial Park in this manner. We are not only acknowledging the past, but we are standing beside these remarkable champions of civil rights who have changed the shape of our current history, and acknowledging and honoring them as well. I want to thank all of you for paying attention to this and for allowing us to continue to be a part of this very important process.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Take someone here from the center. Yes, ma'am, right here.
Hello, City Council. Just thank you for letting me speak. Mayor, Mr. Snook, and Michael, just wanted to let you know that today I had just tagged you in an article that I had found on Facebook that I found very disturbing. And it kind of brings everything here together, talking about the people that are going to be displaced at the mobile park, talking about the unhoused on the downtown mall, and so on and so forth. A friend of mine, Barbara Fitch, brought it to our attention that the property management, it's Beestill Properties. They own a property on Page Street, and I'll just bring it to your attention right here. And bringing it back to the comprehensive plan, the rent is $4,350. Now, I don't know about you all, in discussing about the comprehensive plan, nobody can afford that except for people with really extremely deep pockets. Bringing it back to the people that are going to be displaced from the mobile home that have been here for years and years, people that are struggling on the downtown mall. I don't know what happened to the property that was on 29 that was supposed to go towards housing people. So the city of Charlottesville is just moving completely backwards. The one thing that really, really disturbed me about Beestill property is the fact that they provided, it was really kind of normal for them to rate language, racial profiling on in the 10th and Page neighborhood. Just they go on about the house itself and bedrooms, blah blah blah. There's a camera mounted on the front porch to the left of the door. Note in capital letters, Please note that Page Place is located near a low-income neighborhood. Our location is very walkable to UVA grounds in downtown. We recognize that not everyone will feel comfortable. I don't know about any of you all, but I call bullshit. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. That's wrong. And here you all, like 100%, you go ahead, move forward with this comprehensive plan. And if you think that affordable housing, we all know that it's just a buzzword. The only people that are going to be able to afford properties are people with extremely deep pockets and developers that with the they're going to just run around and grab up all the property that they possibly can so they can just move forward and just put little dwellings, and nobody's going to be able to afford. And what about these people in the mobile home and on the downtown mall? And this is disgusting. I wish I could read you because I don't have any time left, but just the points made to this. But I just wanted to say, Mayor, it was on your page, and you responded respectfully to a woman who was asking you to look into about a dog. Not that I want dogs chained up, but I find that really disconcerting that you couldn't have just said, thank you. I will look into it. That's all we want. Is just that's not respectable. It's not.
Thank you. So your time is up.
I would really like somebody to look into Be Still Properties. And Michael, I'm going to give this to you because you're the only one that would probably look into this for me.
And I know I don't have any time, but this is my neighborhood, and that's insulting. It's like a slap in my face. And I wish y'all would please care about us. Because that's terrible for somebody to do that. $4,000 to rent?
You can have 3 minutes. You can go ahead and
Yes,
speak.
I don't understand. So please, you all, think about this. This is horrible, what's going on now in this town. And it's going to get worse. Mark my word, you're going to see worse.
Yeah.
Somebody better care about the homeless. Like I said before, there's somebody up in heaven looking down, and everybody's going to go away from here. You got to care about the people. Everybody can't help because they don't have anything.
Thank you so much. Who else would like to speak? Yes.
Hello, my name is Senlin Means. I am a Charlottesville resident. I was born here. My parents had a store on the downtown mall through the 80s and the 90s, and I myself worked downtown for 12 years, and I'm currently a co-owner of The Beautiful Idea. I just wanted to say that I have never felt unsafe. As a woman, I go down there at night all the time, never felt unsafe. Our customers never complain about feeling unsafe. Our business is doing great. And I think one reason for that might be that we treat the unhoused folks with respect and dignity and just treat them as they should be treated. And I do not think that more police is an answer to this problem. In fact, I get really annoyed that we talk of it as if the unhoused folks were the problem. But they're not the problem. The problem is that they have nowhere to live. And so I think instead of focusing so much on the economy and economic issues, the first thing we need to do is find some affordable housing and somewhere to have them live. I'm happy to have folks sleeping on the downtown mall. Personally, I think if they can't have tents in the park, might as well sleep on the mall. Seems like a pretty good place. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 more speakers. Anyone else would like to speak? Yes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Susan Bashline. I'm co-owner of Magpie Knits at 111 West Main Street. I have been co-owner of this business for 11 years, so I've been on the mall almost daily, the whole 11 years, and I've seen many things, good, bad, indifferent. Our business attracts women, children, as well as men to the mall and to our store. And unfortunately, recently, it's been a bit of an unattractive place to visit. Daily we encounter trip hazards from things on the mall, not along the edges, blocking walkways. And I'm asking for maybe some common sense, either enforcement or governing to make it a little safer place. For almost a month, there was a walkway blocked between our store and York Place, which, I easily could walk around, but it was definitely blocked by dogs, people's things, and I've been watching the news and seeing all the news reports about the scooter companies who are now being fined for scooters being left on the mall, on sidewalks, because they're a trip hazard for visually impaired people, which I totally agree. But so are these things. And so I'm asking for maybe some common sense governance, that if we're going to enforce that we really need to make it safe to walk on the downtown mall without tripping. And I'd love to be able to have I understand people need a place to sleep. I understand that. Sides of, along buildings or places, but these walkways, the people are out right in the middle of the sidewalk all day with no recourse. It's scary, first of all, for people who aren't used to it. We're used to it. We see it every day. But some people aren't. It's a fact of life. Every city has the problem. We do understand that. But we're just looking for maybe some common sense, to help us make it a more enjoyable place. And my other kind of problem that we've been having are unleashed dogs on the mall. I've been told many times that there's not a leash law on the mall, that dogs just need to be under voice command. And then with a quick search today, I did find there actually is a leash law on the mall, from 9th Street Bridge to McIntyre Road on the mall to Water Street to Market. So I'd sure hate to find out that, a child was hurt, an adult was hurt, or another dog because of these unleashed dogs. So I again, looking for common sense. If there is an ordinance that needs to be a leash law, but the police would know it and help us enforce it, it's a little scary for people who are afraid of dogs or to have a dog walk up to them. I haven't had a problem. I'm a dog lover. I've got many dogs, and we provide water for the dogs on the mall. But I just like common sense enforcement is really all I'm asking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 more speakers. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir, on the back row.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Michael Kaplan. I'm with Friends of Seville Downtown. And I want to thank you for your willingness to make those tough decisions that may not be popular with everyone, but are necessary to protect the economic and social well-being of our city. Inadequate action by prior councils has led to the devolution of life on the downtown mall, and it's become an unregulated park where people are sleeping and sitting morning, noon, and night, and creating a jagged environment that is, as you've heard, is deterring customers and tourists and visitors. What we need is an intentional park with some regulation somewhere else where people can go. And we then need you to enforce no camping on the mall, because what we have now is a deteriorating downward situation that unless you act soon, it'll be lost. Everyone I talk to says they've stopped coming downtown. It's no longer fun. As you heard other witnesses say, it's driving away people who love downtown dearly, and I've been coming here my whole life. It's a long time. And it's merely through the absence of focused, intentional leadership by our council and a set of regulations that are respectful to the unhoused, providing them an alternative, and making sure that the bricks do not become an unregulated pop-up campground. Thanks.
Thank you. Last speaker for this opportunity. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the community matters at this point. There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Ms. Thomas, can you please read the consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Number 3, minutes, April 1st, regular meeting. Number 4, resolution to appropriate funds for the Virginia Department of Education Special Nutrition Program Summer Food Service Program, $100,000, second reading. 5, ordinance authorizing a grant of public funding to subsidize the South First Street Phase 2 redevelopment project of Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority, second reading. 6, resolution of the Charlottesville City Council approving the city's participation in the proposed settlement of opioid-related claims against Kroger. 7, resolution to appropriate Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services Victims of Crimes Act Grant Award, FY24, $123,614, one of two readings.
I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Can I just ask, before we vote, which is one quick question, how much money and for what purpose are we expecting we might receive from the opioid settlement? Do we know?
Ms. Marshall is online. Remy, can she be promoted as a panelist?
I think I'm a panelist, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Council members, at this point, we do not know the percentage of what we'll receive from the Kroger settlement. What this does is it lets the state know that you all want to continue to be a part of the group settlement, since the Commonwealth of Virginia, every locality, every county and city has decided to go in together. And then once that occurs and all of the final payments come down from their national settlement, the Opioid Abatement Authority will update a spreadsheet that they send to localities, and then we'll know the projected amount of money. But at this time, it's not on that sheet, so I do not know for certain.
And what sorts of purposes will it be given to us for?
It would be given for the same purposes of all of the other settlements. And so each of the settlements has within the settlement document some guidelines as to how to spend that money specifically for opioid abatement, as well as harm reduction and education. Additionally, there are standards from the Opioid Abatement Authority in Virginia where if you use their gold standard for all of your expenses, which thus far the expenses that you all have approved, which would be the Narcan vending machine, so that our fire department may be able to provide that service and educate individuals, would fall into that gold standard. If you use the gold standard, you get a little bit extra money from the state, so that was always the plan, was to stick with their requirements of usage. So again, with harm reduction, think of things like Narcan, providing fentanyl strips, or what some other localities have done, supporting substance use treatment facilities, for example. Those are all things that people around the Commonwealth have chosen to do, and many others are still looking at the best ways to utilize their money according to the standards.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's been moved and properly second. Any other discussion? If not, can we vote? Okay. The motion passes 5-0. Mr. Sanders, City Manager report.
Yes, we have a two-part report. Ms. Graves is going to go first. I forgot to tell her she was going first.
Yeah.
And then I will give work plan update myself.
Hello again. I'm back in the to provide you all with an update to a new and developing program that is getting close to launch, that will be housed under the Department of Human Services, but facilitated in partnership with the Charlottesville Police Department. It's called Youth Lead. LEAD stands for Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. It aligns with your current council strategic priorities, 1 being education, 2 partnerships, and 3 public safety, and of course the overarching commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. The purpose of a pre-arrest diversion program and bringing it to Charlottesville is to support youth through accessing programs, services, and activities that build protective factors and provide positive, healthy outlets so youth avoid juvenile justice involvement. As a background to why we decided to bring this effort and program to our community, in 2020 there was a team that came from Charlottesville that was included members of our department, Commonwealth's attorney, Charlottesville Police Department, local judge Barreto at the time, and the 16th District Court Service Unit. They received a grant from the Annie E. Casey Foundation to attend a training program at the Center for Juvenile Justice Reform at Georgetown University. It also included 2 years of technical assistance to do some listening sessions with the community and sort of prioritize several goals that would lead to juvenile justice reform, probation reform. We one of those goals, one of the 6 goals in that Georgetown project with Annie E. Casey, highlighted that we wanted to implement a new and updated diversion policy within the police department. In August 2023, the city manager appointed an internal work group and highlighted the implementation of a pre-arrest diversion initiative focused on providing wraparound holistic services to youth at risk of court involvement. And this is currently being supported by the Charlottesville Police Department, Albemarle County Police Department, City and County Commonwealth's attorneys, and the 16th District Court Service Unit. We've also had some folks from the UVA Law Clinic do a research project on best practices in other localities that have implemented pre-arrest diversion programs. We also had a consultation call with Fairfax County, who has had a similar program, and one in Los Angeles, California. So basically the benefits that we're hoping to achieve are to acknowledge that if a young person is arrested, they're actually more likely to become arrested again and less likely to graduate high school. So pre-arrest diversion essentially would take it a step upstream and make sure they're diverted from the court service unit at all. So it means that it's keeping youth that don't pose a harm to the community out of the juvenile justice system. That's essentially the goal. And instead of funneling them into the juvenile justice system, which can be a sticky system, we want to make sure that we're putting support services, resources in place so that once they complete our program successfully, they're better equipped with skills and resources and assets so that they may avoid future involvement. It also frees up resources to focus on more serious and violent offenders. It can potentially reduce racial disparities in the juvenile justice system. Essentially, youth will remain record-free, and they're less likely to reoffend in this kind of pre-arrest diversion program than they are in a traditional diversion program. So how it will work is if a young person has an offense and has an interaction with the police officer, and there's already designated and approved by the city attorney's office and the police department, the Commonwealth's attorney's office and the police department, there's an agreed upon set of low-level offenses. If this young person, one of the offense that they are charged with is on this eligible list, and the youth and parent or caregiver agrees, the police officer will refer to our department, the Department of Human Services, for an intake and assessment and an offering of community-based services. At the Department of Human Services, we have a menu of services that we provide, including KYIP, Teens Give Service Learning, mentoring, and parent advocacy. We can offer some of those things in-house. So that instead of going the traditional route, which is if a youth has an offense, that police officer would take that petition to the court service unit and follow the court path. So if the offense is not on this approved eligible list, then they will have to go the traditional route through the court service unit. Or if they've had a prior history of involvement with the juvenile justice system, they would not necessarily be eligible for pre-arrest diversion. So when they are referred to the Department of Human Services, they don't have to touch court, they don't have to touch the intake office, which again improves their outcomes for future success. So instead, they'll come to our offices. The youth would be required to complete, they have a choice, either 4 sessions of Teens Give Service Learning, which is essentially we provide transportation, we pick young folks up, we take them to a community service site, we provide preparation and reflection after their service. Or if doing community service in a group setting is, that person prefers one-on-one, then we could provide 4 sessions of free one-on-one mentoring with one of our department staff. So again, these services would be free, no charge to the youth. Optional, we have a menu of optional activities that are provided through funding from the city manager's office, and additionally the Virginia Juvenile Crime Control Act for prevention. And so we would have a menu of services to say, once we start to get to know the child, what are their goals? What are their interests? Do they want to go to a sports camp? We can pay the fee for that. Do they want a gym membership? We can pay the fee for that and help them with the enrollment. What the idea is, we want to have a brief interaction with them to sort of see what their needs are, help meet their needs, provide some pro-social activities and mentorship so that they never come back into the system ever again. Like I said, the funding is already contributed through a grant that we received to our department and through both the city manager's office and Albemarle County Human Services. Our agency is able to serve both Albemarle County residents and Charlottesville residents through the grant, and so they've also contributed some additional funds. So after 90 days, if the youth has completed the required sessions, those brief sessions with our department, then the youth will not be formally charged. They will never have a record. They will never have a tracking system number, which is the ideal situation. So we say that they would have gained some level of support, resources, and additional skills so that they have prevented any future police encounters. Unsuccessful diversions, if after 90 days that young person was not able to complete the required sessions or they have another charge, then the youth will have to have their referral returned to the court service unit, in which case there still are activities and services, but they would have to go the traditional route. And I know that's a brief summary. It's meant to be brief, but do you all have any questions or comments or thoughts?
I do. You said kind of near the beginning how it differs from a traditional diversion program. What is a traditional diversion program?
A traditional diversion program our office also facilitates, but what happens is we're partnered with the court service unit. So traditional diversion has a little bit more teeth to it. So if a young person has an eligible offense for a traditional diversion, they would come to our office. We would still offer the services and requirements, but it's they have to complete those things within 90 to 120 days, or it could go to a court and then a judge has the authority to make a decision on what a sentence would be. If they're successful in that 90 days, then that case gets dropped, but there would still be a record of their touch in the juvenile justice system, and they would have to, like, there's data to support that just one going to court as a young person, even if you're like going to support a family member that's in court as a juvenile, if you're a juvenile, then your chances of court involvement can increase. So we're trying to keep them out of those offices altogether.
Great, thank you.
You may have mentioned it, but is part of that partnering with a mentor? I'm a big advocate of mentoring, providing a mentor to young people.
Yeah, our mentorship program is does one-on-one. They meet at least weekly, and it's more skill-based. So we kind of talk to the young person, figure out what are your goals, what are the things that you see for yourself. And so for one person, it might be job skills. So we might do practice resume writing, and we might do practice interviews. But for one person, another person, it might be that they are feeling overwhelmed with anger issues and they need some consultation or some teaching on anger management skills. So it varies from person to person.
How does one become a mentor?
They are staff, city employees through the Department of the Human Services, and there are about 10 staff on that side of service.
Other questions or comments?
Just that it seems like a really great program that y'all put together. I remember last year when we were talking about the city manager trying to stand up various groups that could address the issues that we were facing in the community, and it takes a long time to pull something like this together, but I just want to acknowledge that y'all have stuck with it, and it seems like a fantastic program.
Thank you. One of the parts that we're proud of is partnering with Albemarle County Police Department and Albemarle County Commonwealth Attorney's Office so that we can, no matter where a child is in these boundaries that sometimes get blurry, that they would have an equitable access to the services. And that was really important to us, and I'm glad that these entities and agencies have signed on. So before we are actually officially able to launch this program, we're just working on circulating the MOU to the city attorney and getting those MOUs signed, and then we can hit the ground running.
Thank you.
All right, so in 17 days, it will be 1 year as city manager.
All right.
I'm still here.
All right.
Don't do anything else. That was it. But really, I'm here. I plan to be here. It's a lot. I can't use the word fun yet, but I'm working on it. But 9 months ago, I came before you and shared with you that I intended to produce a work plan. That's a document that I choose to use in managing a voluminous amount of work. And I thought it was important for me to be able to share that with you, council, as my bosses, so that you know what I'm up to, but also for the public. The goal was for the public to be able to see what it is that we're prioritizing in the way of work. And since I produced the first version of this and shared it with you all, we revised the website, so now on my page on the website, you can get updates throughout the year and additional things that I've added, in addition to another place on the website called a transparency portal for anyone that hasn't checked it out. If you're looking for information and you've heard me talking about it, I'm putting it there so that you can find it. So just want to share that as a part of an update for you as well. So this is boring government. I know some people have gotten excited about the idea of boring government, so I want to just talk a little bit about what it is that we're doing that's so boring. This year, this past fiscal year, FY24, was a challenging year. It was not the year that one would choose to come into a new job with the volume of work that was laid before them. But the team rallied around me and we got a lot of stuff done. So I wanted to spend a few moments just talking about a few of those things. We got 3 collective bargaining contracts done, delivered, effective July 1. That's a big deal. Being able to do that all at one time for police, fire, and transit. And we're already working on number 4. We implemented class and comp changes comprehensively. It was important for me to be able to make sure that we did not leave team members behind and being able to demonstrate that we would do something for everyone. While not equitable, the goal was to do the best that we could to modernize our human resources system. We've been making a lot of changes, a lot of long overdue changes, I will say, that have led to us getting to a place where we're beginning to feel better about it. I know that there are people who will say, I'm not there yet. I understand that, and we're working on it. But this was a dramatic shift in the operations for this organization and a costly one. So we had to make sure that we did it as fairly as we possibly could. We've talked about the zoning ordinance a little bit. There was a huge undertaking under leadership of Mr. Freeze towards the end of getting that done, and the team working there. We got that done, and now we have a lot of work to do in its implementation. Just last meeting, we talked about the sidewalk priority list. I've been talking about sidewalks since I got here 3 years ago. Sidewalks are an important priority for us, speaking to quality of life and access, and we have made sure that we have lived up to the mission, and the task that I gave the team was to produce a list, make it available, and put it on the website and tell people when we're going to get stuff done. We're doing that now. So I'm very proud of the idea that we've been able to achieve that. Misty and team were here. Some of our firefighters are here. They were a part of this alternative response model program that we were able to announce that we're working on. Excited about that, along with youth pre-arrest diversion that you just heard about. Delivering on the things that we've identified that we know we need to do is more comprehensive in nature. That's what this has been about for me, being able to figure out some of the things that we've talked about, not necessarily acted on, some of the things that we've thought about, but not necessarily committed to, and some of the things that we have tried, but maybe we didn't try wholeheartedly, and to see if there was just another bit of energy that we could add behind some things and try to get those things moving forward. So the fact that they're on the accomplishments list is a big deal. We secured extension of regional operating agreements with one on tonight's agenda, and we're going to get it right? Yes. All right, thank you. So it's very important for me to be able to demonstrate that we can work with other people. So we have Albemarle County Mutual Aid, UVA Fire Services, and CARS tonight on the agenda. A highly successful launch of microtransit partnership with Albemarle County. It was important for us to be able to see what we could do to support their needs, and that we can't solve every problem with our current transit system, but they were able to receive some grant funds and ask us to participate in bringing additional service to their region. We were able to do that, and now we're excited about where else we might be able to go with that. Our emergency management coordinator, our first designated emergency management coordinator in the organization, has been able to update all of our emergency management plans. That is basic and boring government. Very important, very hard to read stuff, but it was important for us to get those things done so that we can have the confidence that we are ready for all hazards in this community as it relates to the government's response. And some significantly important property acquisitions, Zero East High, Avon Levy, both of those being high interest conversations. I'm going to leave it there, and we'll keep working on what we do next with each of those. We filled critical positions. It was important to make sure that we have the team. I need the team around me to get the work done because I can't do it all by myself. And my intent is that I don't need to. That's what they're for. So we were able to get 2 of our deputy city managers' seats filled, one to replace me. Our fire chief is permanent. Communications and public engagement director, 2 assistant police chiefs, a FOIA officer, assistant director and CAT, fleet manager, and facilities maintenance manager. Those are big positions, important positions that play critical roles across this organization, and we were able to get all of those seats filled within the past 12 months. We're working on reorganization priorities. We added a deputy director in public works. It's a critical position for us to be able to elevate someone who could actually pay a little more attention to some of the nuts and bolts and bringing things together. So it was important for us to see that we could do that. Mike was already in the department. He has been a rock star, is what I tend to call him. And he's been able to answer questions even when most people will probably run away from the answers. He has been able to stand up and answer those questions. We added a right-of-way project manager because a lot of our projects have gotten stuck. We have not been able to overcome the challenge that right-of-way poses. It's a very difficult situation, but we have someone who loves this stuff, and he lives and breathes it on a daily basis. And we merged our transportation project managers with our facilities development team, forming for the first time a project management team so that we can have best practices employed across this team, therefore affecting the entire organization, and not where you see one division doing well and another division struggling. So that was important for me to be able to see that I could support. And as we've talked about VDOT, you've heard a lot about it. We're still not done. There's a lot of, I guess, forensic evaluation and assessment that's being done, but there's good stuff that's happening just the same. On the agenda tonight is a memorandum of agreement, a right-of-way process. Both of those are critical to our relationship with VDOT as we reboot this relationship and try to make sure that we can make the kind of progress that we want to make on all the projects that have made it to our portfolio and all the projects that we dream about adding to it. The Belmont Bridge is done. We got it done, all right. It was something that people have talked about forever and a day. And while it is just the critical piece of infrastructure, it brought about a lot of conversation, and I ride over it today, and I'm just thankful that it is finished. We have all 3 of our parks projects within our VDOT portfolio moving. We plan to get those done. The goal is to add more, and we will continue to add projects when the portfolio feels right. We're trying to get backlog done first, and then we'll feel good about adding additional projects. So there have been challenges. I'm one who is pretty matter of fact. This council knows me. I don't shy away from anything. I can deal with whatever. I'm pretty direct, and the goal for me is just to tell the truth. It's a lot. This job is a lot. This city wants to do a lot. It's okay. We can do it, and we have been. We have some long tenured challenges that lead to a slow progress. Sometimes we find it difficult to get our projects done, but changing our approach is a continued priority. If we can focus on planning well, scoping projects well, we will absolutely execute well. And that is what I'm really, really committed to, helping this team being able to see that we can do on a regular basis. The cost of things on the long list are very, very costly. Transportation, homelessness that we have heard about a lot today, housing, schools, collective bargaining, ADA improvements, and Parks and Rec improvements. That's going to be talked about later on today. These are very, very high ticket items. We've got to balance that. I say it to these 5 all the time, and they don't like the word discipline, but it's important for me to talk about discipline because somehow we've got to balance all these different things. But it's important that we don't lose sight of what our challenges are and that we're working to address those. So what's next? Homelessness interventions. This is a conversation I've been having with council here lately. I've been reaching out to members of our public who are working in this space, experiencing various things, looking for what are the things that you recommend we consider doing and aligning those with what we are thinking about doing already. I assure everyone in the city of Charlottesville, we are not ignoring this problem. This is an ongoing conversation, one that has been going on for quite some time. And I will be honest and say that since October, it has been a high priority for me. We're working on a number of things. We feel good about where some things are going to go. There is a delicate nature to it, as you all have expressed this evening, and we will continue to work on that. Our Police Civilian Oversight Board, there's some recommendations that I'll be bringing forward in regards to how we can support its operations. There's transportation innovation work that council and the public have all spoken to as a priority, and I agreed to as a part of concluding this year's budget that we would prioritize transportation in next year's budget. So somehow I have to figure out how to deliver that with all the things on this list, but we'll figure that out. Our ADA transition plan, there'll be an update to council next month, to council and the public next month. There are many, many things on that list. There are many, many obligations that we as a city must be able to address, and over time we will get those things done. So we have to balance what is on that list with the Parks and Rec master plan that comes next year that focuses on our quality of life and recreation and things that we need across our city. We'll be looking at how do we balance some of those things with other things. Collective bargaining continues. We have 3 units today. We have 3 more coming. We have to figure out how to make room for all of that, and the goal will be to ensure that when we're done, we're better for it. That's what ultimately this is all about. And then downtown mall improvements. We launched a committee. The prior city manager, interim city manager, produced a downtown mall committee. We did work for a year. We have a lot of things on that list. The mall celebrates 50 years. It is important to me that it exists for 50 more years. I came from places that didn't have a mall, didn't have that kind of amenity, and it's important for me to see that it is valued, respected, and is there. It needs to be there for all of us. So I would like to figure out some things that we can do as well. We still have some key staff capacity, but what I did on this page is because I don't want the media to take this and run that, oh, we got chaos all over again because we have vacancies. Vacancies are a natural part of evolution for any organization, so it's okay. The NDS director position is open because we promoted someone. The DSS director position is open because someone retired after 30 years. She earned it. We have vacancies in a couple of other spots, and that last line, the transit planner, customer service representatives, and additional drivers are all new. Those are all improvements to the system. So we will get those taken care of. And because that list is a little bit shorter, I might be able to get it done before 12 months. That's my goal. And I'm here to implement council's vision, and that is to be a place where everyone thrives. So unless you have questions, that will be my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will publish the work plan for FY24 that captures the results in total in that spreadsheet thing that I do, as well as the version for FY25 by the end of this week.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Been busy. We're now on to the action items, and the first one is an ordinance to amend Chapter 19. Jason will present. Jason, we have a lot on the agenda, so you can give us the abbreviated version of your staff report. The abbreviated part of your abbreviated report.
Yes, abbreviated version. Good evening. I'm Jason Vandiver. I'm the city treasurer and a member of the Retirement Commission. As you all know, the city administers a defined benefit pension plan. Usually when somebody retires, they elect to receive a benefit, which is paid monthly to them for the duration of their life. But about 20% of our retirees select what's known as a joint and survivor benefit. So they may have an eligible beneficiary, such as a spouse or other eligible dependent. And when they do that, we have to do a calculation to determine how much those alternative payment amounts should be. And they look at those and they determine, do I just want the single life annuity payment, or do I want to choose one of these that continues on to my spouse, you know, if I were to predecease them, for example. The city code specifically references a mortality table that the commission has to use when they're doing these calculations. That mortality table is 48 years old. We would just like you to strike the reference to that mortality table so that we can use a more modern one, but that requires an action by city council to do so. So that's my abbreviated version, but happy to answer any questions.
It's pretty good.
Brian, you're on that committee, right?
Yes, sir.
We both
Are you
are.
asking if I have further commentary? Mr. Vandiver's done a lovely job explaining this.
I think the word choice of modernizing is
Yeah.
really the critical piece. It's just
Yeah.
catching up with time,
Yeah.
something we could have done some time ago.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that this change only affects people who have designated spousal beneficiaries?
Yeah, it's only in those cases, and it's actually a slight benefit making this change to those employees.
So just so everybody will know, my wife gets a small pension from the city after 8 years as city attorney in the city attorney's office. However, she did not designate me as a contingent beneficiary, so she is unaffected by this change, so I have no conflict of interest.
I just want to clarify, you're saying it will no longer reference or refer to the 48-year-old table. Is there a new table that gets put into place, or is it just no table?
No, there would be a new table. So, for example, all the other calculations that involve the plan use a table that was last updated in 2021. So the commission would just work with the actuary and adopt whatever table they recommend that we use.
Got it.
Okay,
Move its approval.
all right. It's been moved. Can someone second?
Second.
Oh,
We got to do
I'm
public
sorry.
hearing.
Oh, sorry about
Okay.
that.
So I will now open the public hearing to amend Chapter 19 of the City Code. Anyone from the public want to speak on that? If not, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion to?
Now I will make the
Yes.
motion.
Yes.
Second.
Second. Can we vote, please? Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is ordinance to correct ordinance number 0-21-172. Chris?
Good evening, Council. Chris Engel, Director of Economic Development and a board member of the Charlottesville-Albemarle Visitors Bureau, and that's what brings this item to you tonight. This is a correction of an oversight that occurred when this amendment was approved almost 2 years ago. It was noticed, and this is a cleanup item to attach the correct amendment with the correct resolution. So if you have questions, happy to try and answer them, but this is scheduled for a public hearing out of an abundance of caution and to repeat the steps that were taken 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Just one, or sorry.
I just wanted to say that I represent the city on this committee, and this is straightforward. So.
Yeah. I'd have one very small question, which is just procedure-wise. So amending it, we pass something, and Albemarle County also has to pass this same thing?
No, we're amending our ordinance that was approved before theirs. So theirs was done, to their knowledge, correctly. Ours had an issue, so we're fixing ours, and we'll be.
But we could amend our element of it at any time on our own?
Yes.
In this respect.
In this respect. All the language is the same. It was just.
Because it's not a material change to the standing arrangement.
There's absolutely no difference to the actual, what's being approved.
It's more like a typesetting error of sorts.
Scrivener's error from the
Yes.
legal landscape, yes.
Love that word.
That's all.
If there are no other questions at this point, I will now open up the public hearing to correct ordinance number 0-21-172. Anyone from the public would like to speak on this particular item? If not, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion to support this?
I would move approval of the ordinance to correct ordinance 0-21-172.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Can we vote, please? The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to amend and reenact the city's ordinance enabling EMS services agreement with CARS. This is the first of two readings. Chief Thomas.
Thank you. Mayor Wade, members of council, Mr. Sanders, Madam Clerk, members of staff, good evening. The item before you tonight is a request to amend and reenact Chapter 12 of the city's code and to introduce the newly updated emergency medical services agreement between the city of Charlottesville and Charlottesville Albemarle Rescue Squad, replacing the amendment from 2017. The primary reasons for this update include the city attorney's office noticed the need for a well-defined funding relationship that aligns the current billing laws and practices. These updates align both agencies with the rules of EMS billing and state and federal, at the state and federal level. The newly updated amendment offers a matrix that breaks down the funding schedule that we currently have. And also, it includes a term allowing for periodic reviews and adjustments. These updates are administrative changes and steps towards enhancing public safety in our city. The first EMS agreement was created in 2015. Then in 2017, the city and CARS collaborated to establish emergency medical services for the city, with the Charlottesville Fire Department as a designated emergency services response agency. Therefore, the new agreement has been established, allowing CARS to continue providing emergency medical service as a designated component of the Charlottesville Fire Department. Although the response model has changed over the years, CFD and CARS continue to provide the citizens with advanced and basic life support. This aligns with City Council's vision and strategic plan for public safety and the provisions of medical service for the citizens. I hope you had a chance to review the documents and also the included red line version of the updates. Tonight, Mr. Sanders, a representative of the City Attorney's Office, members of CARS and CFD who have been instrumental in these updates are available to answer any questions regarding the updates to the ordinance and agreements. The present underscores our commitment to transparency and open communication. So at this time, any discussion, questions, or concerns?
No questions, just to say I know this was a lot of work and time, and that I can imagine this was not easy at times, but I'm very glad that we've gotten to this point, and I think it'll be good for the city overall.
Yes, it was a great experience, and the collaboration was great, and we're going to be better for it.
Yes, I concur. I'm glad that we're able to use the expertise of the volunteers and the staff over at CARS. It's I know that it took a lot of work to coordinate this agreement, so I'm glad that we have one. So.
Yeah, one of the very first things when Juan and I came on board were folks from CARS, all of this confusion, and you probably remember this, and there was a lot of, I don't know, just discontinuity, whatever word you want to use, disconnect, disagreement, and I'm really happy that y'all have, it's taken a while, but have figured out a way to work together well, and I think it will help everyone prosper, so thank you.
Yeah, Brian, I think it was our indication when we got on council, there was a lot more than we thought, so we're glad it's that.
Congratulations to all of y'all for sticking with it.
If I might follow up on that just a little bit, I actually had the same visit to CARS 2 years before you did, and had the same sort of experience. But I note that since that time, I don't know, we've been through, 5 city managers and 4 city attorneys and 3 fire chiefs. And we finally found a combination that could bring this together. So, thank you all.
Yes.
Any other? So this is the first reading, and
Do we want to do the thing where it becomes just one reading and moves to consent?
That would be
yeah. Can we do that, Keena? Is that?
Should we?
I'm fine with just putting it on the consent agenda.
That would be a question for city. There was a public hearing tonight, so I think you could pass it on the same night as a public hearing if
Okay, we'll put it on the consent agenda next meeting, because that's a public hearing for the consent agenda for the next meeting.
That's fine.
Is that?
Not really, but second reading is fine.
So we'll just forget I said anything. Just trying to find efficiencies where we can.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
so
Chief. Okay. The next item on the agenda is ordinance to amend the Charlottesville Human Rights Ordinance. Todd.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Came over here because I saw the remote was over here. I do have a little presentation for you this evening, so hopefully that will help clarify. There's a lot of changes to the ordinance that I wanted you to have a look at and want to make sure you understood them. I know previous times when we've done amendments to the Human Rights Ordinance, we've had 221s to talk them all through. So we're trying a different approach this time, where I'll go through in general. You have the amended ordinance, the proposed amendments to the ordinance in your agenda packet, as well as this presentation. So hopefully that was a good enough introduction to it. There'll be plenty of time to ask questions this evening. So let me go ahead and start this presentation. So why are we back here amending the ordinance again? So as you're probably remember, we've been moving toward a Fair Housing Assistance Program agreement with the HUD Fair Housing Office. We submitted some ordinance revisions most recently in 2022, and we took that to HUD and they said, change these things. So we're back with a few more amendments to meet what their requirements are for the entry into that work-share program. We also wanted to make the sections that apply to the Human Rights Commission a little bit more understandable and easier to implement for the commission. So we'll go through those changes as well. And then we wanted to update some key components of the investigation process. We've learned a lot in handling cases over the last few years. Wanted to make sure that our processes were reflected in the ordinance as well. In addition to that, we added a table of contents, made some general spelling, formatting, citation, grammatical corrections, those types of things that always escape you when you do a big revision to a document. Sections 2-437, 1 through 3, those are our investigatory sections. We wanted to make sure that those procedures were clear and consistent across all those sections because they were slightly different because we split them up across protected activities. Those now are reading a little bit more clearly and succinctly and similarly. Additionally, we added fair housing code citations throughout the ordinance to aid in the review by HUD for substantial equivalence to federal fair housing law. That was a suggestion that HUD provided to us. So those are throughout the ordinance as well. I'm going to go through kind of the key sections here where you'll find revisions. Again, you have a copy of the big ordinance, which is now 36 pages. It's a lot to take in. We didn't want to go through page by page, but here are the main things that I want you to be aware of and ask questions about. So first of all, in the section 2-433, the role of the Human Rights Commission, we wanted to make that an easier section to understand and also combine a few of the sections that were separate from that into one to make it easier for the commission to implement. So, for example, section 2-434 had the commission's duties related to community engagement. We merged that into the section 2-433, which also had a section about community engagement, so it was all in one place. Similarly, we moved text from 2-435 A, B, and C about responsibilities related to systemic issues to make that all in one place to match the same spot in section 2-433. I'm throwing a lot of numbers here.
Yeah,
just the way it is. Yeah.
Abbreviate it, we're good.
Yeah, good. In addition, we condensed all those sections that were relocated to make them align better and read better in 2-433. In addition, we removed the section that the commission would conduct at least one research project or review every 2 years, mostly because that didn't really align with how commissioners came in and out of appointment to the commission, and it didn't seem to capture exactly the spirit of the work that they were trying to do to be responsive to things that were coming to them from the public. There's plenty in there about addressing systemic issues, but that requirement for a research project or review every 2 years didn't seem congruent with the rest of the work.
Why was that in there initially?
I'll go back to that. So that was suggested by a community member when we did amendments a couple of years ago, and council voted it in, but it was never really something that the commission itself proposed or vetted. That's why it was in there.
And I think there's a long history to it in that I think when the Human Rights Commission was originally created, my understanding is that along with a number of other things were going to be in there and not included. And I think the goal ideally would have been the commission could be a body that council could direct to take action on an issue we're interested in, and it could result in policy change, and they would kind of be a body we could devolve some of that more intensive research work to. So I'm curious in taking that out, is that something that the commission wanted out? Did they feel they just weren't interested in doing that work or weren't capable of it in terms of their capacity?
That's a great question. I think it's important to realize that council can suggest and should really suggest things that they want the commission to look into. I think that part of this, just having a blank requirement for a research project every 2 years, without any real where is that coming from? How is that established? Just to have that arbitrary requirement in there didn't make as much sense, didn't allow the commission to be nimble and responsive, and I think that's the key. Is the other thing to consider is this is an appointed body of volunteers, right? So residents who are tasked with doing this work. To conduct research is a pretty big ask of a volunteer body. So as you know, they're providing you recommendations on legislative priorities. They provide you recommendations on city policy that affect human and civil rights. I think that is really the spirit of the ordinance. I think that is what they are trying to get to. They have a work plan that they use now on an annual basis to lead to those actions. And again, if you have suggestions and you want to bring them to the commission for them to address and look into, I think that is a much more appropriate way to address community needs. So hopefully that makes sense why that sort of arbitrary clause was removed or suggested for removal. Any other questions on that one? Okay. So in 2-434, this is the section that talks about what is the Office of Human Rights. Similarly to the Commission, there's a section that says what is the Human Rights Commission and what is its role. We also wanted to do the same thing with the Office of Human Rights, define what it is and then talk about its roles. So just to have sort of parallel sections there so it reads more clearly. We also added a clause that the director may hire additional staff as approved by city manager and council to fulfill the duties within the ordinance. Additionally, in the role of the Human Rights Commission section, we created, again, this to mirror that which exists for the Commission and made some slight revisions to the community outreach roles to mirror other language in the Commission sections that define the scope of issues to include human rights, discrimination, and or equity. It was a little bit more narrowly defined before. We wanted to make that a little bit broader, especially in our collaboration with the Office of Social Equity. Again, this is the first section of the three that I talked about with regard to investigation procedures. This is going to be a lot of changes in here, but the main thing to keep focused on is this was amended to more accurately reflect the procedures as we've learned to do them over time, and to make them much more clearly to implement for anyone who's taking on that role. So we broke down the sections by one, complaint and answers, and further action, and a few others that you'll see next. But within those, we tried to make the complaint filing process more clear to reflect the standard practices and practical application that we've already started using in the office, added a clause to address situations in which former commissioner is a party to an inquiry of discrimination. Also changed that we no longer are referring to a state or federal agency for non-jurisdictional cases, or even jurisdictional cases, but informing the individual of the option to file. We didn't have a formal referral process, and that was brought to our attention, so we wanted to make sure that we clarified that what we can do is help guide someone to filing with the state or federal agency. On the further action section, we added a clause that clarified that it's the aggrieved individual's responsibility to provide current and updated contact information to the office. We put that in there because oftentimes we will lose touch with an individual who doesn't provide us with clear contact information, or their contact information changes and we cannot find them. So we wanted to make sure that that was clear, that that is a necessary component of filing a complaint. Also, we consolidated and updated the procedures regarding non-responsiveness, similar to that section above. When we can't find or get a hold of somebody and they're non-responsive to our work around investigation or alternative dispute resolution, we have a process to close the complaint administratively so it's not held open indefinitely, which is not a good situation either for the complainant or respondent. Continuing on in that section, under alternative dispute resolution, that's a new section we created to consolidate all the information related to informal dialogue and mediation in this particular section. Additionally, we created an investigation section that consolidated all the work around investigation and added several clauses related to the director's authority to request subpoenas. We have a subpoena request authority in the ordinance, but it was not robust in the sense that it didn't allow for the request of both documentary evidence and witness testimony. And I can tell you from experience that when we can't subpoena witness testimony, people just decide not to talk sometimes. And so that is a key component, not only for this section, but it's specifically for the housing section. When we talked with HUD, we'll get to that section as well, we updated the subpoena clause as well, because they said that was essential that we be able to subpoena witness testimony. Again, last section here, reasonable cause determination and effect. We created that to consolidate the information related to the rendering of findings following the completion of an investigation. So you'll see these same sections repeated in section 2-4372, 2-4372, which is the housing investigation section, as well as 2-4373, which deals with credit, public accommodation, and private education, the other three protected activities that we can address. And here you go. We're into section 2-432 with regard to housing complaints. Again, we incorporated the revisions in the other investigation sections. We also removed, by HUD's request, the director's deference to the deputy city manager for racial equity, diversity, and inclusion to allow for a more self-contained process. That was a thing that HUD called us out on in various spots where we can't defer decision-making to a different office outside of our own in certain processes, so we had to remove those references. The other minor revisions that we made per HUD were kind of scattered throughout, but the idea being that there were minor tweaks to meet the requirement of substantial equivalence to federal fair housing law for entry into that federal work-share agreement. And then additionally, we added, as I mentioned at the beginning, fair housing code citations. Wherever there was something related to substantial equivalence to federal fair housing law, we actually put the code citation in there so that HUD could see how it aligns much more easily and hopefully get it through the approval process more quickly. Okay. This is the third investigation section for individual complaints of public accommodation, credit, private education discrimination. Again, the same things that we made changes to in the initial 2-4371 are replicated here. And we also changed the similar referral thing that we will not refer complaints to the state or federal agency, but we can inform the individual of the option to file.
What does private education mean in this context?
Sure. So that's not basically anything that's not a public school that's within the city of Charlottesville. So a private school that does not receive state funding. So public schools are considered state entities and have a completely different regulatory system around complaints of discrimination. So we can't touch those. But we can address private education. So any school that is not part of the public education system that somebody pays to attend, they can't discriminate.
Do they have to opt in to be represented, to have access to your services, or?
So what that means is, as an example, so if an individual applies to enter into a private school, and they're rejected for any one of the protected reasons under the ordinance, they can file an individual complaint of discrimination with our office and we can look into it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Let's see. Oops, I went backwards. Wrong button. Here we go. Okay. So section 2-438 is all about retaliation, basically. We added a clause in here to give people a way to file an individual retaliation complaint associated with a complaint they've already filed on one of the protected bases in the ordinance. We also added a clause to explain that the process for once you file that complaint is similar to the process that applies to the protected activity under which the original complaint was filed. So just to be clear, retaliation complaints are only associated with existing complaints filed under one of the other protected activities. Okay, we're into the section about the role of the Human Rights Commission in enforcement of individual complaints of discrimination. What I have here is a table kind of breaking down some of the major responsibilities and authorities of the commission in the current ordinance versus the new ordinance. You'll notice that nothing much changes except that on the fourth row down, the introduction of new evidence and cross-examination was removed from that process. And I'll tell you why. We talked about it as a commission in a couple of meetings. The ability for complainants and respondents to introduce new evidence and have a cross-examination process in front of the commission is a very it's a very cumbersome and difficult process. It also opens the door for somebody to be re-traumatized through that experience. What we wanted to create was a process in which the commission had the ability to review the record. So they can look at all of the evidence that came about as part of the investigation. They can review the decision made by the director with regard to whether or not there's reasonable cause. But to actually have people come in and present once again their case and try to make a plea to the commission in a public meeting felt, one, difficult for the commission to manage, and number two, potentially re-traumatizing for the complainant. And so that was one of the big reasons we wanted to remove that. And I think it also makes it much easier to train the commission to hold public hearings. So that is the major change in that section that I wanted to make sure that you understood in terms of their authority. The next slide just gives you a summary of a few of the other changes there. Again, the first one is that removing the language entitling parties to introduce new evidence. The next is that we wanted to make sure that we're protecting the confidentiality of all parties, both the complainant, respondent, and any witnesses that participate in an investigation. So we will actually redact the information that we provide to the commission because it becomes a matter of public record. So we'll be removing identifying information from the documents prior to the public hearing before it goes in the agenda packet. Additionally, we removed the section that gives people an option to appeal findings of a reasonable cause. We had at one time discussed this idea, and I guess this is sort of inconsequential. I'm giving you a little bit of background as to what the commission discussed, but at one time we had proposed the option to provide an appeal of reasonable cause to the commission. So the respondent gets the finding, they say, I don't agree with that, they appeal to the commission can hold a public hearing. We removed that because it seemed duplicitous in the sense that if there's a finding of reasonable cause, the commission already has the authority to vote on whether or not to hold a public hearing and provide recommendations. So that's why we had that in there, and then we removed it. So it's never actually been part of the ordinance, but it was something that we had considered and thus removed. Next steps. So the Human Rights Commission has approved this for adoption to recommendation to you, which is why I'm here today. This is our first reading. I think I heard the discussion before. How do we do the second reading? Do we put it on the consent agenda? You guys sort that out because I don't understand that process. But I'm ready to put it on the agenda for August 5th. And again, if you have questions tonight or in between, we can talk about those. If you choose to approve, we would need to submit this to HUD, our revised or approved ordinance, by August 15th to get into the submission deadline for Federal Housing Assistance Program work share for this year. They make determinations on October 1st. And once they make decisions, if they decide to approve us for the FAP work share, it's an interim certification, which can last up to 3 years, but it does come with some of the training and capacity building that is one of the benefits of entering into that work share. Here's a little bit more information to kind of give you some context. We did a little FOIA requesting of our own to find out how many cases we might anticipate receiving from HUD. As you can see from the years 2020 through 2023, we have a display of what cases we've received, housing cases in the office, and in the second column there, what HUD has also received that would be otherwise jurisdictional to our office but went straight to them. Keep in mind that those are also cases that may have gone to the state fair housing office because they are in a FAP work share agreement as well, so that consolidates both of those numbers there. So what we're looking at is a caseload between, looks like an 8 or 9 perhaps. We have an investigator on board already. We're hiring a new intake specialist. Our previous intake specialist just left for another job in DC. We're excited for him for that, but we will miss him, and we should hire a new intake specialist by August. And in addition to that, we can build capacity on all the staff through the National Fair Housing Training Academy, which we have access to once we enter into the federal work share agreement. So that's everything. Here's your question.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seems you guys have been rocking and rolling, so.
It's been a team effort.
Yeah.
I told them I wouldn't call them out, but I have 2 of my colleagues, both one from the commission and one from the office. They've been instrumental, as well as city attorney's office, in getting this done. So I don't know if you have any other questions. You can always send me an email if you got any others. Yeah.
Thank you, Todd.
So,
thank you.
I'm saying it's can be on August 5th
Yes.
agenda?
Just a second reading, yeah.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank you.
I don't have any suggestions at this moment, but I would just suggest we put it on the agenda rather than consent, just because there's so many substantive changes, including
Yeah.
ones that change some of the powers. I think it may,
That's
discussion
fine.
can come up.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the main agenda,
yeah.
August the
5th.
5th.
Thank you. The next item that we have is ordinance authorizing a grant of public funding to subsidize the 6th Street redevelopment. Alex, do you have an abbreviated version for us?
Yeah, this is pretty quick. Good evening, councilors, the mayor, the city manager. What you have before you tonight is a grant for CRHA as part of city support for their redevelopment initiatives. They are looking at phase 1 of South 6th Street. It's going to be 47 units. And the city's contribution to the project is $3 million for a $31 million project, which is roughly 10% plus or minus. Other funding sources will include LIHTC, state funding, and then private sector contributions. Just for records, this $3 million has already been approved by the city council, actually. January 18th, 2022. So what the council is doing tonight is just approving the agreements for the project with the specific requirements and expectations. So this is first reading.
Okay.
On August 15th, we ask that the council place this on a consent agenda.
August 5th.
August.
So there's an ordinance authorizing a grant for public funding, and basically this just operationalizes the fact that we've already committed to this in our CIP and in our affordable housing plan.
Exactly.
So that I can sign the documents.
And then there's also an MOA. Okay. Does the MOA have the force of an ordinance, or is it just incorporated by reference kind of thing?
It's an ordinance.
Okay.
Other questions? I think that we will have it on the agenda on August 5th. And you're up for the next item if we're ready to move on, councilors.
Yep.
For ordinance to authorize a forgivable loan to Virginia Supportive Housing for the Premier Circle.
Yeah, councilors, again, this is different from the grant program for CRHA, because CRHA is a quasi city government. This is a forgivable loan. It's part of $1.5 million funding gap that they're experiencing, and the city and the county decided to split the $1.5 million, and the city is contributing $750,000, and the county is contributing the rest. And this is going to be 80 permanently affordable units. Most of these units will be geared towards the homeless population, and about 68 of those units is going to be dedicated to folks between 40 and 50 AMI, and then the rest will be less than 40% AMI units. And the total cost of the project is going to be $24 million. And again, this is a forgivable loan. If they don't meet the expectations of the agreement, the money will be refunded back to the city. If they do, then the loan will be forgiven. And they are looking at starting construction sometime this year. It was supposed to be March of this year, but due to the funding gap, it looks like they're going to be starting it later part of this year, and is expected to be completed in March of 2026.
Okay. Questions, councilors, on this project?
So again, this is something that we're committed to financially, and it's been part of the plan for a while, and this is
Right.
just operationalizing it.
You approved it in January when I came to you asking for the authorization to move this item forward as a part of the strategies that we were working on for anti-homelessness. So at this moment, this is just to authorize me to be able to sign the documentation.
Okay.
Sign away.
Yes.
So this will be on the consent agenda for the
I think
5th?
this one can be on the consent agenda, Veterans.
It's fine.
Okay. Thank you, sir. The next item is, Chris, a resolution of some financial support for 501 Cherry Avenue redevelopment.
Good evening again. Chris Engel, Director of Economic Development. This item is similar to the previous two in that it seeks to support additional affordable housing in the city. It uses a slightly different approach. It's not a loan, it's not a grant. It's a resolution of intent to support a project at 501 Cherry Avenue, which is a partnership between Piedmont Housing Alliance and Woodard Properties, owner of the property. It'll be a mixed-use redevelopment, approximately 71 affordable units, along with some commercial space. They've been working in association with the Fifield Neighborhood Association to develop an acceptable plan for the neighborhood in concert with the small area plan that was done for Cherry Avenue not too long ago. PHA is pursuing multiple sources of funding, including LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits, as well as other state funding. What they've requested tonight is a resolution of intent that the city would consider pursuing a performance agreement type arrangement that would allocate a portion of the incremental increase in real estate tax created by the project. So this is new funds that are created by the project, so it's not, you're not allocating any budget today, but you're simply indicating your willingness to consider creating a performance agreement once the full funding for the project comes into fruition. That would allocate some of the future taxes created by the project back to them for a period of time. This concept is similar to what you've heard recently for Kindlewood, Friendship Court, Phase 1 and Phase 2. Piedmont Housing Alliance is also involved in those. You have
Is this a
approved two.
TIF?
I'm sorry?
Is this a TIF?
It is similar in
Okay.
concept to a tax increment financing.
Okay.
It's a performance agreement that allocates a portion of the increment created by the project. So it's, yes, you're correct in that.
Thank you.
So the resolution's included here. They are seeking their LIHTC credits soon, so this would assist in that process, simply having an indication from the local government that they're willing to consider pursuing such an agreement is helpful in the grading process for the LIHTC. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions you might have at this moment.
So Sam, this doesn't, cause any issues with the finance since we're not committing to any specific amount,
Right.
type of thing.
Right, and you'll still have an item that Chris will bring back later on when the project is ready to go in the form of actual performance agreement.
Okay.
And this is because you're only spending what they're going to help create. You're not taking away from what already exists.
Other questions or comments?
No. I would just note the past three items, I think that's 200 total units of affordable housing, including the last item, permanent supportive housing for the homeless. So
Yeah.
I know the public's eyes might glaze over.
Yeah, but it's actions that we're doing.
working on it.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So this is one we can do tonight, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So if there's no other questions or comments, can I get a motion to support this?
I move for adoption of the resolution for financial resolution supporting 501A Cherry Avenue and 501B Cherry Avenue.
Second.
Second. Okay, please vote. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Chris.
I also want to commend the work of the Fifield Neighborhood Association for all of their efforts in this project. It's been really exciting to see it come together.
Yeah. The next item is a resolution to enact a MOA Memorandum of Agreement between the city and VDOT. Steve?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. In front of you is a memo and a resolution asking the council consider approving the MOA to allow VDOT to manage certain projects based on the assessment of our program. Some of you are familiar with the process, what we're doing as part of our improvements. And I ask council to to move forward with adopting the resolution.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That wasn't me. I don't know who that was. I'm just apologizing on their behalf.
I didn't hear anything.
So, can you repeat the last part, please?
So I'm asking council to move forward with adopting the MOA to allow the city manager to execute the MOA
Yes.
as part of our approach of improving the way we manage projects.
Yes.
And if I'll just add, just for the benefit of that ongoing narrative that the public has heard me speaking to as it relates to our performance concerns and our reimagining how we get projects done. This is just an example of how we've been able to work with VDOT recently to get them to help us identify how can they help us. So that's absolutely what this agreement is about.
I guess the response, it sounds like they've been a willing partner putting this together. And,
Yes.
Okay.
All along, the entire way.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments on this agreement? If not, can I get a motion to support it?
I move for approval, adoption of the memorandum of agreement between the City of Charlottesville and the Virginia Department of Transportation as laid out in the packet.
Second.
Second, please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Steve, you here for the next item for the resolution to accept the right-of-way acquisition and eminent domain or quick take process and procedures.
Yes, Mayor, item 16, this is, will be one of the, our ways to improve how we go about delivering projects. One of the areas that we've had challenges is during the right-of-way acquisition process. This right-of-way procedures and manual and the acquisition allows us to have a template as well as the actual procedures for all of us to be able to follow and meet the federal and state requirements. So staff is asking council to pass the resolution adopting the new right-of-way processes. Do you have any questions?
And this is what you came and spoke to us about, Mr.
Correct.
Hicks,
Yeah.
a couple months ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the,
These are the things that's making VDOT smile and with working with the
Beginning
city.
to smile,
Beginning
yes,
to smile,
yes.
yes.
well, no, they're smiling, they're just not laughing yet.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Okay, if there's no comments, can I get a motion to pass?
Yeah, I move the resolution to accept right-of-way acquisition and eminent domain / quick take process and procedures.
Second.
Second, please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Y'all take care.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is accepting public comments on the Parks and Rec Master Plan, Court Square and Market Street parks. Mr. Anthony?
It'll be Mr. Bassett.
Okay, yes.
My name is Will Bassett with the Parks and Rec Department, and we're here for the comprehensive master plan this evening. As a component of the plan, we are developing 4 framework plans. Those are for Benjamin Tonsler, Booker T. Washington, Court Square, and Market Street parks. Tonight, we're focusing on Court Square and Market Street parks. I'd like to introduce Tristan Cleveland with Kimley Horn, who's going to do a brief presentation about the framework plans, Court Square and Market Street, and then we will move in and welcome comments from the public.
Great. Thank you very much, Will, and thank you very much, counselors. Great. Will did the introduction for us. So this is part of the overall Parks and Rec master planning process that the city is engaged in. Part of this process was to specifically look at 4 different parks, as Will mentioned, to be able to go a bit further in depth with them, to be able to take this opportunity from what the overall needs were by the citizens and by the city for these 4 parks getting called out as deserving some special notice and some special attention going through. So tonight, talking about Court Square and Market Street Park. So what we are doing with each one of these parks is that we are going to be developing a framework concept plan. This is a step back even from a concept plan. It is just the initial understanding of the context, what's happening there, and then starting to be able to hear from the public what they are looking for through a series of stakeholder engagements, and an evaluation then of what use possibilities are for the site and how that is connected with the overall Parks Master Planning system process for what could be applicable at these sites. So see this overall process that we have through here, it's very data focused, and then especially with these framework plans, it is very, very public focused. You can see I'll have a schedule in a couple of, oh no, it's going, there we go, backwards. So very, very public focused. We have a series of stakeholder meetings of various sorts, and then that's going to be leading into a final framework plan. These framework plans are going to be showing relationships, use areas, themings, and that the next efforts would be looking at specific designs for it. We're just getting the idea of like ballpark costs, ballpark possibilities to be able to set up for the concept plan in the future. So looking at Court Square, we've done analysis of existing conditions for what the opportunities are on site, if there's any ADA access opportunities within the site, the tree health, looking at what the possibilities there are. Its proximity to other areas. Both Court Square and Market Street are very special in that they're fairly unprogrammed right now with the removal of the statues that had been their purpose. And so then this opportunity is looking towards how these can be reprogrammed. So it's functionally operating as an extension of the courthouse grounds, passive seating, mature canopy trees, historic structures. There is limited ADA access, and then it's a centralized location near the downtown mall. Market Street did a similar process, analysis of existing conditions, opportunities and constraints. Again, great adjacencies, some good views, loss of its primary purpose with the removal of the statue, but there's always been a secondary function, so I don't want to say a primary function because the statue was just sitting there, but this as a event facility. There have been a number of events held within the city at the site through the years. There's some really nice shade trees through here, but again, a primarily unprogrammed and passive space. With sidewalks and benches, trees of various ages. The city just planted some additional trees through there. Again, some limited ADA access. That's what happens with older established parks. It wasn't a priority when this park was being built, and that it's currently used for passive enjoyment as well as scheduled events. The process, or rather the schedule for this is that we are now in the community engagement portion. You can see all those blue circles. Each one of those is a different type of community engagement. This event is one of those community engagements where we're reaching out for, we've done a series of stakeholder interviews that for each one of these parks that has already been conducted. We have done a first round of focus groups. So these are smaller collections of, we took the information that the stakeholders gave us for like who else should we be talking to be able to hold those focus groups. And then for each one of these parks, we are having a public meeting. This is functioning as the public comment input meeting for Market Street and Court Square. And then we're going to be going back after those rounds of public meetings back into another round of focus groups. Also, we have a survey, public survey that is up and running on the project's website. There's a QR code that I'm going to be having up on the screen if you want to snap a picture, but then it's also a way if anybody isn't here this evening to be able to comment, or that they aren't able to attend any of the public meetings, that they're still able to share comments through that survey. And then what this is going to lead to, after these many, many different avenues of public involvement, is developing that concept framework plan, working with the Parks and Rec Department, and then to be able to refine, have their comments, and then a final framework plan with the ideas of what potential programming, maybe what the spatial relationships would be associated with it, and then a preliminary understanding of cost. What this does is it sets up the city for the next steps for a deeper master planning process for these 4 sites. So what we're looking for tonight primarily is community feedback. We want to direct people's comments towards how these parks can be designed. We've been doing a lot of listening up until this point, and just about people's stories, people's general uses of the park, but now we're starting to look into the future. That's what this next round of the public involvement, what these meetings are. So the feedback that we're looking for are, what are the community values that need to be reflected in the improvements for Court Square and Market Street Park? And then what are the experiences that need to be provided at Court Square and Market Street Park? So I'd first like to ask if you all have any questions or comments about either this park or the process in general.
I'll wait until after public comment.
Okay, great. And then I'm not totally sure what the process is, but ideally opening up for public comment, specifically if you can be asking or responding to these prompt questions.
I did have a question before we, if you can just give us an idea of what the input thus far has been like. What did it, what was the outreach look like, and how many people have you feel like you've gotten a good round of input from diverse groups of citizens?
There's been a fairly good diverse input. Am I allowed to invite Cheryl? All right, okay, Cheryl and Chuck. So these two lovely folks with Downtown Economics and then Community Yes, community engagement. They've been leading the day-to-day outreach. They've been giving me the summaries, but they can speak more specifically about the process.
Thank you.
Yes, we had, give me Chuck Dupree from Downtown Economics. Good evening. We have reached out, we started with a number of individual stakeholder interviews. And so we had a pretty diverse group of folks from across the city, and we did those one-on-one interviews. That allowed us to develop information for focus groups. So the next step over the last couple of weeks was to garner information for all of the parks from focus groups. To answer your question, the turnout's been pretty good. We think it's going to get better as we start with the public meetings and then the other rounds of focus groups. So, so far so good. But I think we have a pretty wide-ranging group of people to whom we've spoken.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Did you want to add anything, Cheryl?
Just the number of interviews was about 20 individual conversations that we were able to have.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilors, if you don't have any questions right now, we'll open up the public hearing. I think we have some guided questions there for the public. Anyone, the public hearing is now open if anyone would like to come up and speak.
Just one question.
No.
You have to speak into the microphone so that people watching online can hear. Thanks.
I saw the sign at Carver. I use Carver and Key, and I asked if this was open for all questions on Parks and Rec, and they said yes, it was. But you just want to focus on the parks because I guess I've come by mistake. I saw the signs.
Thank you very much for coming. If you have any comments in particular, I would love to hear them. But
we'll hear your other comments.
But yes, yes.
No, I came because Carver has pickleball hours, but because they don't have shades on the windows, no one comes to play because of the glare. And so I brought a list of people that signed from Pickleball and Key that were requesting shades put on the Carver windows so that can be opened up for pickleball.
Okay, thank you. That is very helpful. I think if you can...
Ma'am, if you could see the director, our newly appointed director in the back there, he will happily talk to you about that.
Thank you. You have come to the right spot where you can be heard.
Thank you. With the public hearing for the parks, but as you hear, we'll take other comments concerning parks as well. But anyone like to come? Yes, Dr. Douglas.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Wade, councilors. I am here in part to offer some information about what we had, information that we received from our earlier interviews about parks in general, but because we're concerned with Court Square and Market Street Park, but also to offer a little bit of an update too about what we've been working on in terms of the Swords and the Plowshares. I wanted to just remind council that when we received that and made that application, that our intent at the end of our process is to offer this object or objects or whatever it is that is created back to the city as a gift. So there are some people here who know very well what the Swords and the Plowshares project looks like, and some who have not yet been able to interact with us. But in regard to the first question, what are the community's values that need to be reflected in the parks? I wanted to say that in our first community engagement process, which we did largely during COVID, and we do have a report that we're almost ready to hand over to you. What we heard a lot from the community was they wanted objects that were interactive, that were reflective of kind of notions of equity, that where people could engage, speak about, where children could play. That's one of the things that we heard most succinctly. And that was across the board. Because people believe that Market Street and Court Square are the parks that we are most interested in because the statues came out of them, I think they're very interested in that space of equity. What I wanted to say just moving forward was that Swords and the Plowshare has also done a survey where we have asked about the histories of those parks, how aware people are of them, that including both Court Square and Market Street, that people are interested in learning more about the history of those parks. 98% of the people who answered our survey say they want to do tours much like the ones that we did early on. We also asked them questions about things like where they believed new objects could go in the parks. And so Market Square is one of the most responded to comments thus far. Moving forward, we have hired a researcher. We've hired a project manager. We are about to create our request for proposals. We hope to be announcing a potential artist by the beginning sometime of next year. We hope to have a plan or an object for you to commemorate the 10th anniversary of 2017. And so we have been working with Parks and Rec. We appreciate the relationship thus far, and just wanted to let you know that if you want to know what we've been up to, we want to give you a more in-depth report soon. Okay?
Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? So I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council for comments and input.
Yeah, and I'll be fairly brief. It's oversimplified, but I guess in my mind, there's kind of two paths for these two parks. One is these could be parks that are pretty standard and could be a park that exists in most any city in the country, or two, they could be defining public spaces that engage thoughtfully with local history. And those are two very different directions. And my opinion is I think it would be very important. I mean, whether we like it or not, there's a lot of deep local history in these parks, but they're also of national historical significance. And I do think it would be an enormous wasted opportunity not to have a lot of intentionality in these two parks, to have them be defining public spaces that are engaging with our local history. And not repeat the mistake I think some other localities have made in how they've dealt with public spaces that ended up being places of national significance.
Thank you.
Okay. Natalie, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a couple things. I was a history major, so I'm always someone who stops and reads the plaque, and trying to incorporate that into the design, of whatever it ends up being, making sure that it is site-specific with historical relevance is interesting for all kinds of people, not just history majors. And I mean, obviously the ADA accessibility is important. I was just this is relevant even though it's slightly a block or two away. I was in Boulder recently where they have their own version of a downtown mall designed by the same person but has been maintained differently than ours. And something that was notable there and could be incorporated into any of our parks in Charlottesville is there was not playgrounds, but more dedicated space for children, like a little climbing structure, a little like bridge over a fake river, a map of the city where they could run around and say, I'm over here now, I'm over here now. And so it was friendlier for children, but without being so, like a playground, because there's the playground a couple blocks away. But, you know, places that are friendlier for kids means they're friendlier for families and more people can enjoy that space. And then there was also lots of shade structures, which was important too. Something that I think, two things, broader things that I want to keep in context, especially with Market Street Park. Court Square Park is already kind of associated with the municipal functionings of the court, but Market Street Park is next to the library, and I know the library has some ideas for how they want to use that space, again, to make it more kind of child-friendly, but also just programmatic for things that the library does that's not just for children. So like amphitheater space or, you know, small little improvements like that, benches, picnic tables, whatever, for activities would be great to see. And then I floated this idea earlier tonight via email, but closing 2nd Street at that block in between the park and the library, I would also be super open to that, making that connection safer and more deliberate between the park and the library could be excellent. It's basically a small little street. There's plenty of loops around if you need to detour, so that would be potentially really cool. And then another historical thing we have coming up is the 2026 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so if these parks would be ready for events that might go with that from all kinds of perspectives, I think that would be a useful timeline to shoot for.
Mm-hmm. Would be an ambitious time.
Yeah. Yeah, even like not necessarily done, but not mid-construction project, perhaps.
No, yes, that'd be yes, an important thing for any
a
construction
good
deadline.
stopping point along the way to be ready for that, and then pick up afterwards. Something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, hi, thank you for coming tonight. I largely agree with what my colleagues have said. I think, I think what they've said is appropriate and good and wise. I hope that both of these, and this is really going to be the trick, both of these parks have got a lot of pain associated with them, and how we honor that history and how we honor the events of a few years ago, and do so in a way that's honest and authentic to who Charlottesville is, particularly since there will be a lot of other people who want to write their own narratives about what happened in those parks. I think it's going to be really important. So I don't know, I guess from my perspective, I hope that we don't miss this opportunity to tell stories, you know, about our history here, both in the past and in the recent past. I don't know if there's engagement with the HRC that's happening, Historic Resources Commission. I'm glad to see the Swords into Plowshares folks are here. So that's a really complicated sort of thing to pull together. If you're asking me what as a park, you know, just as a park might look like, then I think sort of what you've put tonight, you know, that sounds like a great first stab. But I think that there really needs to be some intentionality about how the history is told. I would hate for these to be done and, you know, it just be kind of swept under the rug or something. I think if you've had a chance to look at the memorial to enslaved laborers at the university, we can't afford anything like that. But I think that they've told a story there that it's a beautiful place, it's a somber place, but it's also, I think, a hopeful place. So how that's pulled together, I don't know. That's well beyond my acumen, but I just would hate for us to miss this opportunity and to do this right. I think if there's any person in city government that I think could help with that would be Deputy City Manager Ashley Marshall. And so I'm sure she's listening, and I hope she'll assist. Yeah.
Saying what?
Yeah.
She has been involved through the process, yes.
Does that make sense?
It does, yes. No, it's very helpful to hear that, and we understand that these are very sensitive sites, that there is a lot of stories, very sensitive and painful stories associated with them, and so that's part of this process of gathering that. I've lived in Charlottesville for the last 10 years. I was here when that happened, and so beforehand and afterwards, and so very much like, so you can rest in the idea that it's not an outside firm. We have
Yeah, I mean, I don't want it to be sort of like morose and somber, no one can enjoy the parks anymore. I'm not saying that, but somehow there has to be the looking for the future and enjoyment and so on, but also, I think, recognition of why those statues were there in the first place and why they're gone.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
So I don't have a real clear set of thoughts on Market Street Park. I have more thoughts on Court Square Park, and they largely grow out of one of the things that happens in our family is when people come to visit, I end up giving them a tour of historic Charlottesville. And one of the places we always go and spend a fair amount of time is just walking around Court Square and then down to the mall and talking about that whole history. And it occurs to me that particularly now that as of last week, we have an official walking tour map of historic Charlottesville put out largely by the Historic Resources Committee. There is, I think we ought to think about how Court Square Park could be put together with the things around it to be something that tells a larger story of Charlottesville's history, of history going back to 1762 and perhaps even before that as well. But that if you think about just what people would do in walking around Court Square and the Court Square Park and to the spots around there in roughly an hour. It's not reasonable to think that people are going to go spend 2 hours walking around, but they might well spend 1 hour. What would you do in Court Square Park that would help tell a story in an hour?
Just in Court Square?
No, Court Square Park, along with with the court building itself and with other things in the area. But think about what, from a historic tourism standpoint, what might prompt somebody to say, yeah, I'll spend an hour walking around there. I'll pick up this map and I'll go do that.
The historic Charlottesville scavenger hunt.
Or something.
Some kind like that.
Or something.
Yeah.
But I think there are so many different stories, different sides of the stories that can be told through the events around Court Square. For example, one of the stories that has not been told in public, hasn't been told in monuments and so on, is growing up, we were always told that court days was a festive occasion in every small little town, and the lawyers and the judges would go from town to town to town to town. And when that would happen, there would be commerce and there would be food sold and so on. And we were not told that there would be people sold. And that's an important piece for us to be adding to that entire picture. And just, I want us to be able to have in a close enough area that it's reasonable to think that people are going to actually take it in, to be able to give the many faceted sides of things in that, the 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks area.
Yep. So that's going to be a combination of the artifacts, the site design, but then also the programming that goes on.
Absolutely.
So things like the walking tour and the guided map, or if there's historical interpretation days or themed activities, such scavenger hunts or puzzle tours or other things that are going to be happening. So it's going to be a combination of those. And so the specifics, there are a lot of interesting ways that, that communities have designed, whether it be one method is a plexiglass that has been etched in with what the view had been if you stand on this location. So it's a non-intrusive way to be able to then visualize. There's a lot of and then interactive possibilities, both for memorials, but then also art, exploration, play, what all that can do. So there are a lot of different options that come into the design. And at this point, we're not sure what those are going to be. We've got ideas, and that's going to be part of the framework plan of ideas, but the full concept plan for the specifics of what and where will be the next step after this process.
Well, and it occurs to me that one of the things that could well be done in a place like Court Square Park is, let's say you've got maybe 10 different little placards, and just put a QR code on each one, and people can fire up the QR code and get a more detailed story and more links to things that might interest them next time around, or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yep, you can even have an auditory walking tour that's done that way also through QR stickers, which they can even be stickers where they go onto the backs of signs, like a way to be able to kind of retrofit an audio tour, even if the original site didn't have plaques with it, or if technology changes and QR codes are no longer a thing.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want to suggest that I think that Court Square Park may lend itself better for that purpose than Market Street Park or any other park handy. So it's just a different kind of concept.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only comment that I have, I concur with my fellow counselors, is that just over, I guess, the last couple of days, we have gotten a request for a park to be named after Lorraine and Eugene Williams, and I really haven't had time to review exactly where that is in relation to specifically the Market Street Park and Court Square. Do you all know exactly?
Yeah, it's basically, if you come in Park Street and you've crossed High Street and the courthouse is on your right, and Number Nothing is on your left, the open space between Number Nothing and the old Monticello Hotel is the area that they're talking about, or that they were talking about.
Right.
There may be a subsequent redesign of the
Right.
thought, but that was the first proposal.
Okay. So anyway, that's different from this, but if you can, all of it is kind of connected.
It also poses a problem. Anything there has to be coordinated with Albemarle County.
Because that's county land.
They have jurisdiction over their courthouse.
Yeah. I know what you're referring to. That I've been to some ceremonies and stuff in that space now. I know where it is now. Thank you. But yeah, I just think it's that I'm glad that what you're doing, and you are doing a due diligence of getting the input in for this and understanding the sensitivity of it all. And so I have great confidence in the process, and so we'll see what comes. This is not you call it this a framework? Is that what?
A framework concept plan.
Framework concept. Okay.
Can you remind the public what the next sessions are?
The
The next park sessions, where and when they are?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So we have a Tonsler Park meeting that's scheduled for this Thursday evening at 6 p.m. in Tonsler Park. It'll be a public input session. Please let everybody know about it. Please attend. And then we have the Washington Park meeting next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Forget the location. Carver. At Carver Rec, also at 6 p.m.
And are these in person only?
These are in person only. There are the survey links, and then if you had comments that you weren't able to share, there's an open comment section at the end of the survey, so you can add in any additional input or comments to it.
Thanks.
Thank you. That was a great question.
Yeah. Okay, well, I will now close the public hearing. Is there any follow-up, Anthony, or anything else you need from us this evening?
No follow-up, just want to encourage the community to really come out to these public sessions. It's very, very important to Parks and Rec. We are not looking for the next 2 years. This is going to steer Parks and Rec into the future for the next 10 years. So it's very, very important. We want to hear the community's voices. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, we have a written report. If there's no questions on that, before we go into the final community matters, I want to remind people that on Saturday, August the 3rd is West Haven Days, and they are looking for volunteers for that, so I encourage people to contact. I know Joy Johnson is spearheading it, but they need many volunteers to help with this out, so please contact them to volunteer if we have a few hours on Saturday, August the 3rd. So that being said, also wanted to let people know that we had many comments about the Carlton Avenue Mobile Home Park, that we have directed staff to look into the various options that has been presented to us. So we will be hopefully hearing back from that soon. That being said, I will now open up the final speaking opportunity for the public. Is anyone here from the public like to speak? Mr. Gathers.
Good evening, Council. Don Gather, city resident. Just a couple of things, and I'm sorry that the park officials left. One, I'm hoping that the homeless population, at least some of them, were included in the surveys over at Market Street Park, since they're the ones who use it absolutely the most. So I hope that that they were at least asked for some sort of input. Secondly, as far as the meeting on this Thursday at Tonsler, that is an absolutely horrific time to have that meeting. The Tonsler League plays over there at that same time. If anything, that's going to drive people to not want to participate because they won't be able to find parking. So I really hope that Parks and Rec will reconsider that and push it to another time. Thursdays and Sundays is not the time that you want to have a meeting over there. It's just not in the evening. Now, I also, as a former member of the initial Civilian Review Board, I'm very much concerned with the way that that has now been, in essence, neutered. The members of that board have been handcuffed. And this is a board that was created out of necessity, that was seen by former councils and the citizens of this city. But some of the efforts now have effectively taken away any possible power that they could have. We can't, no one can possibly think it's a good idea to share an attorney between the city and that board. I just can't imagine, I can't fathom how anyone would wrap their head around thinking that would be a good idea. You put both the city and that board, in essence, in a conflict of interest. And I urge you, I implore you to please reconsider that and find another firm for that board as soon as possible, like tomorrow morning. It amazes me that no one has filed suit for conflict of interest through the state's Attorney General's office, or even going to the Western office of the U.S. Attorney's office here in at the federal courthouse. Something needs to be done about this. You all are well-educated people. You're some bright and brilliant people. Do better, please, please. And I realize that my speaking out about this might indeed handcuff my ability to serve on another board. I've got an application in right now for the Human Rights Commission. If that's the case, so be it. But when there's wrong and when there's improper actions, someone needs to call on it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gathers. Would anyone else from the public like to speak? There be no other actions, we stand adjourned. Thank you.